Hello, you are welcome to yet another edition of Answer Arena. We call this Answer Arena because this is the section where we receive questions from students across the country. Now, any part of the country or even outside the country that you are in, and you want us to respond to questions on media and communication studies, maybe questions bothering you in class, or maybe exam questions, whatever, you send them to us. Our WhatsApp number is on your screen. You can send us the question via WhatsApp, or just in the comment section, you just type it in. Today we have a question from another student, and this question is on journalism. You know, anytime that we're handling journalism question, whether it's reporting, types of reporting, any kind of reporting or journalism, we dress like Anas to create awareness so that those who don't know Anas, especially young students today, they will know that there is a man called Anas Aremeyaw Anas, a Ghanaian reporter. Now, he is the most influential investigative reporter in Africa, Anas Aremeyaw Anas. So we dress like Anas, and that is a way of promoting, investigative journalism. So today we have a question, and it's a simple one. The student is asking us to define online journalism. In simple terms, we should define online journalism and then the advantages and disadvantages of online journalism. So we'll just go straight to the point. Online journalism. What is online journalism? Online journalism is simply reporting through the internet. Now, online journalism is simply news gathering and dissemination through the internet. It is online. It's also called digital journalism. So it's the same thing as the usual journalism, that is news gathering and reporting through the print media or the broadcast media, the normal ones, but this time around, you are reporting via the internet, online. That's why they call it digital journalism. So it is news gathering and dissemination through the internet. So it is the same thing as a journalist gathering stories and reporting, but this time passing it through the internet. And then the news channels are online, but you could have web-only news channels where you have internet radio, internet TV, or even online newspapers and magazines, but they are only online. They can only be accessed online. But then the traditional newspapers and magazines that they also have online versions. Even radio and television stations could have their internet versions too, or online platform where they do their reporting too. So online journalism is just the business of news gathering and dissemination through the internet. You have news platform online through which you pass the information. It could be online only news channel, like you have some online newspapers in Nigeria, for instance, Premium Times and The Cable. They are online only newspapers. You can work there, or you can have the traditional newspapers, the ones that exist offline, like Vanguard and Co., having their online versions. Somebody can also work for them and then work in the online section of such publications. So that's online journalism. And online journalism is growing not just in Nigeria, but across the world. And this is basically because this is a digital age. And it is now easier for people to access the internet because of evolving technology. Information and communication technology has continued to evolve. You now have laptops that are sophisticated. You have smartphones and all that. People now even prefer going to the internet for their news stories. And that is making online journalism to grow. You can practice online journalism as a professional that works for, known newspapers, magazines, radio, TV houses online. You can work for them like This Day, Vanguard, The Guardian, New York Times. You can work for them, work for their online platforms. Or some others work as citizen journalists. They use social media platforms to disseminate information. Some also create their own online news channels. It could be an online news website or online newspaper or magazine that is not known. But the fact is, you can work as an online journalist if you understand how to manipulate your phone, use it to send messages, and then how to gather news and disseminate information. The challenge is always that there are a lot of quacks, people who didn't learn journalism. They are all practicing online journalism. But in every profession, you can't remove the fact that quacks could exist. So that is online journalism. Simply means news gathering and dissemination via the internet. That is just it. Now, let us go straight to the advantages and disadvantages of online journalism. Don't forget that online journalism is also known as digital journalism. So let's look at advantages of online journalism. Now, what are the advantages? First, it gives you news on the go. That is what we call real-time reporting. Online journalism gives breaking news. What is happening now, you get it now, because the reporters are feeding the internet with information of what's happening now. In fact, even sometimes breaking news, you watch the video as it's happening. Of course, the story could even be streamed live. So that is it. Online journalism gives you information on the go. It gives you breaking news. That is to say, it brings you up-to-date information as it happens. Now, it also gives you time shift reporting. Now, what is time shift? This is the ability to schedule a story to appear on a later date. In fact, if you are working in an online news platform and you want a story to appear the next day, you can actually schedule it. This is what traditional journalism that is offline cannot achieve. So it has that feature that is what we call time shift reporting. That is scheduling, whether it's a news story or feature article that you want to appear the next day or next 2 weeks. That gives you opportunity to do it online. Then it has expanded audience base. In fact, the audience in online journalism are kind of unlimited, because many people across the world can see your story, see your newspaper online or magazine, or listen to your internet radio, and that way you have unlimited audience across the world. Then it gives room for creativity. Because it is online, and here you're talking about technology, you can actually mix video, mix audio, you can use graphics, you can use animation, and then make your story interesting. You can live stream and all that. So you find creativity being mixed with journalism. Then online journalism gives you room for use of multimedia approach. So this feature here is multimedia approach. You see, in online journalism, you don't just write text or you just give audio like in radio or just audio visual. But in online journalism, for instance, print, you can combine different kinds of devices to pass across your information. You can use audio, you can use video, you can use text, you can combine with graphics and animation of all kinds. So that's what you call multimedia approach to reporting. One story can have text, it can have video, it can have audio or audiovisual, it can even have graphics, motion picture, it can have that too. One story. So you find excitement in reading a story online. That's one beauty of online reporting. It is interactive. You see, the audience are not just passive in news reporting and then consumption. No, they are part of the story. You see, this time around, you present the story to them, they read it, they react to the story, and then sometimes you find out that the reactions they generate could even be more interesting than the story itself. So it is interactive, and then you use hyperlinks to make them even part of the story itself. You can write a story and then give them links that will take them to other stories that will back up what you're reading, or that will give them better background to the story you've given. So the hyperlinks take them to other aspects of the story, and that makes it interactive. It makes it exciting, because as they read, they don't just sit back, what we call linear news presentation, where you just present news only one direction, you present it for them to read, they don't even contribute, which you see in the conventional newspaper or radio, TV. This time around, they participate. It is non-linear. They participate, they are active, you present the story, they come there, present their reaction and all that. Very interesting. Then it has unlimited news hole. This means that you have the liberty to put in more stories or use more space than you can use in the conventional offline news channel. What does this mean? For instance, in newspaper, it has pages, and then you have half page, you can put a story in quarter page because you're trying to manage space. But here, because it is online, the space is unlimited, so you can even make a story too long because there is space to play with. Same applies to the internet radio, internet TV. Because you have space online, you can actually enlarge a particular story. So it has unlimited news hole, especially when you're talking about newspaper. You don't quarrel with space and all that. You have space to put in more stories. Then it has limited entry barrier, which means you don't need much to be part of online journalism. You don't need to go to any special school, because if you know how to manipulate the phone, a smartphone, you can actually engage in online reporting. But of course, we keep advocating for the basics of journalism. You should do a course on the basics of journalism so that you know how to report, what to avoid and all that, how to maintain professionalism. But the fact is that you don't actually need much. You don't need to start paying for office. You don't need much hands. That's what we mean by limited entry barrier. you don't have much, because if you want to set up a newspaper or set up a magazine or radio, TV, you know what you pass through to even get license or to get office space and all that. That's why today you have so many people that are citizen journalists. That's to say, you can report with your smartphone, your laptop, your palm top from anywhere you are. That's easy. So it's easy to become a journalist, but it is good to try and maintain professionalism if you're going to practice online journalism. Now, the next advantage is that news goes paperless. You don't have to carry, for instance, newspapers or magazines around. You have your smartphone, you have your palm top or laptop, and then you can read as much as you want. So you see, news becomes electronic. You can listen to radio, you can watch television, or you use internet-enabled handsets or devices to simply have access to information. So that is it. You see, that is why newspapers and magazines, are having challenges today trying to cope with the emergence of the internet technology and online reporting. But of course, what they have done is to move their activities online, and then they have online versions of the print editions and all that. So they are also competing with other online news channels for the internet audience. That is how they're taking care of that challenge. Then the next advantage is that there is less distribution cost. Unlike conventional newspapers, for instance, where you have to pay for transportation to move the copies from one part of town to another or from one state to another, here you just go online, distribute your newspaper to audience across the world. Same applies to television and radio stations, where you have restrictions based on transmitter power, and then there are places people can receive your messages. But when it's online, it has unlimited audience base, and then distribution cost. All you need to do is have data and then upload your stories, and that is it. So you see, it has less cost when it has to do with distribution of information. Then the next point is that it has less rigid editing. You see, because it's online, you can easily edit and then upload. Any mistake you make, you can actually go and correct it, and that is why it is less rigid. You don't have to start worrying about how to record a newspaper that you have printed and sent out. It's already in circulation. But when it has to do with online, you can easily edit. When there's a challenge, you can go. If there's a fact that is wrong, you can go there, remove it, and if possible, you can even put a retraction or whatever. But the fact is that you can easily edit. It is not very rigid. That is that. So these are advantages of online journalism. Now let's look at the disadvantages. One of them is that it has a challenge with credibility. It has a challenge with credibility because of poor quality reporting. Now, this does not have to do with every online news platform. There are very serious online news platforms that are interested in quality. But the era of fake news has been blamed on online news channels. You see, anyone can move into online journalism without basic training. So there is a challenge with quality of jobs put out there. But that does not have to do with every other news platform. There are some that are serious, but most of them, people just jump into online journalism without actually having basic training. So that's one disadvantage of online journalism. It has credibility challenge because most people that participate in this kind of journalism actually don't do top jobs. They don't adhere to professionalism when it has to do with journalism. Then another point is that it has weaker gatekeepers. It has weaker gatekeepers. Who are the gatekeepers? These are the people involved in the process of moving a story from the field to the publication itself. From the time it is written to the time the audience will see it, they decide which story sees the light of the day. The reporter in the field, the editor in the office, maybe the news editor before the editor-in-chief. These are the gatekeepers. The stories pass through some of them. In some cases, it passes through a reporter to a city editor to bureau chief, and then to the editor in the office. But when it has to do with online journalism, you find out that some of them are even one-man business platforms. You have one person who creates a platform and says he's a journalist and then starts reporting. And then the person is not even trained. A number of people that participate in online journalism don't have the basic journalism training. That is why we say it has weaker gatekeepers. They don't know what news is. They don't even know the quality of news. They don't know the news values, news elements. They don't know, what is not supposed to come up as news. But their interest is to publish something and get views. So it has weaker gatekeepers. Then the next thing is that it has fewer gatekeepers. This means that some of them are one-man business platforms. you find a newspaper online owned by one person. The person is the reporter, the editor, everything. He just copies a story from somewhere, pastes, and then says he's a journalist. And people keep reading such stories. That is fewer gatekeepers. But when you have, like in conventional news media, maybe radio stations or newspapers, you have a story passing through different gatekeepers, through different reporters. That strengthens the story. But in online journalism, a number of the platforms have fewer gatekeepers, and this makes the story not to have quality. And then that is the challenge we have with era of fake news. People try to sensationalize many stories just because they want views and clicks. So it has fewer gatekeepers, and then it has weaker gatekeepers. Another major challenge is news overload. Now this has to do with different platforms giving you virtually the same stories. In fact, when you go to a particular platform, you find different links sending you to this story or that story. You see additions and all that, pop-ups, showing you different stories. You get bombarded with stories on one platform. Even when you go to another platform, you find the same story being given to you and all that. So this is news overload, and some readers have said that this is a challenge with online news reporting, digital journalism. Then we have high error margin. That's also a disadvantage. We talked about less rigid editing as advantage, but that is also a disadvantage. Because it is less rigid, you don't pay more attention to proofreading, you don't pay more attention to the content of the story. You are in a hurry to put it out there. So that is why stories have high error margin. It could be in terms of misquoting the source of information, error in spelling and all that. So you have high error margin when it has to do with online journalism, but that is not for all. There are serious news platforms that are serious with proofreading and editing, and they take care of news content before they put it out there. So that's a disadvantage. So these are the disadvantages of online journalism. We have talked about weaker gatekeepers, fewer gatekeepers, news overload, lack of credibility, poor quality jobs, high error margin, and all that. We hope you learned something from this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and share our videos too. Also click on the notification button so that you'll always be the first to get our videos.